have a big drum. The small one you can only sound pola pola, just from underground there. Where will we go after the closure of UN High Commission for Human Rights? And that also is not my question. You know where you're supposed to be. I don't want to be, even if I'm climbing here on the pulpit, it doesn't make me more than I know I am. There's a bigger person to ask to answer that question. I'm very concerned about the question about compensation, and the gentleman here has brought it up, right from Lisa, but also everywhere. We know that when people are resettled, they lose, people with disabilities lose supportive community support to access services. How many of us here pay an assistant to push, anyone with a disability? No, it's the community. Children push you from here to there, to market, to church, back. But when you are resettled, you lose that community support, and you might have to pay for an assistant. Even the older persons die faster because you have broken their social networks and social capital. They can no longer talk to each other as they grew up. You've taken them to a totally different environment, and they have to find other elders to talk to. They can't see them. They die. You see? And even we've found out that even when women can no longer control their birth in terms of knowing the movement of time, the galaxy, because a woman can, because of staying in a place for a long time, she will know when the moon is, that's what actually they call it. You see, men, I'm so worried, because ladies went to the moon before you even knew it. So, but they can tell whether to avoid the man to conceive according to the movement, either of the moon. But once you resettle them and take them behind Mount Elgon, she will lose count of time and days, and she can no longer deter, unplanned parenthood or pregnancy. And this, we underline, we don't give it value that you have broken it, you have compensated them. You think you are taking people, but you are taking away the livelihoods of the people. And these are the issues. About mushrooms, I totally concur. Ants, can you imagine? Sweet ants, delicious ants, if you are taken away from the geographical area where you have been harvesting your ants. And you can no longer have that on your diet. If people from Masaka, if you stop them from Musenen and you, Nyendo people, you resettle them to take them to Karamoja, the month of December is coming, you'll be in trouble. Yeah, they have lost livelihood. Community comedians and community musicians in a town center, Dikura. If you remove Dikura from where he plays and they pay him money, and you take him to Moroto, and Dikura starts playing, they will say, this man is a night dancer, he's a witch. They can beat you. You see what he's doing, what is he putting in the beard? But here, when he does Omodede, so everyone, he's very happy, and they pay Dikura his money. He earns. But if you settle that community where Dikura is, Dikura has lost a job. When you are valuing for compensation, these are the issues we are talking about. Don't appropriate them. Give them value. We very much appreciate some of these go into our policies and action plans, but also, as the expert says, we must incorporate them into the as we move towards the new National Action Plan on Business and Human Rights, because this one is already halfway. We have 2.5 years to review it. These are things which will come into the assessment for review. Thank you so much. I also know that, for example, we traveled from here, Honorable Minister, to Bulisa on an oil and gas inspection, and we never found any place deliberately built alongside the infrastructure for resting, for easing, for even taking, napping. You can't drive from here to Bulisa without stopping anywhere. Ease yourself. Even the tourism place where a European who was touring was killed by an elephant, the monument was put on top of, you can't easily access it. Yet it's an asset for tourism. So these are things which, and people look at the roads as the oil roads. They just fold their arms and wait for oil to go through the roads. But these are people's roads. They should be accessing them using them to access markets. Infrastructure must move from physical to social infrastructure. And that's the marriage of convenience that we are talking about here.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bernard. I disarmed myself by giving the microphone. Please, Ruth, kindly wrap it up because really we have overspent our time.
Thank you. I'll be very fast. Charity, thank you for raising the issues of the youth. If you look in the room, we still have so many youth. You're not alone. And I always say today's youth is tomorrow's old. So when we are dealing with the youth, we deal with the youth, the almost youth, the after youth, the elderly, the in between. So maybe in the next 5 or 6 years, you may not be the youth. So when we are speaking, we include all and the in between. Dan, private sector. Yesterday we had a whole afternoon for the private sector, just discussing issues of business and human rights, discussing their compliance, discussing ADR and how we can leverage on the alternative dispute resolution, discussing compliance and what the UN guiding principles mean and dissecting it in detail. Charles, you raised the issue of Uganda Human Rights Commission and how we can ensure that companies use due diligence. We note that many companies are profit-oriented, and that for them it's about profits. So they compromise on quality, they compromise on standards. Due diligence many times is alien to them. So the National Action Plan comes in to tell them what they should do, and how they should do it. You're seeing so many fake products on the market. Where is that coming from? People come from here to go and trade in Turkey, in Qatar, and they actually buy fake products in China, knowing that these products are fake. And they bring them to fellow citizens in Uganda, knowing that they're fake. Farmers mix grain with sand. Last month, Makerere University released a report that cyanide had been found in rice. That is rat poison. It is poison, including the water we are taking. The Uganda Human Rights Commission, together with some scientists, have found that our grain is full of aflatoxins. The maize, the groundnuts, the peas are full of aflatoxins, and you're asking where the high levels of cancer are coming from. So the farmers, the way we handle the grain, and we know that this grain is spoiled, but we still put it on the market. That is business and human rights. So we're not only talking about multilateral, Total, is it CNOC, UNOC? No. We're talking about every farmer, every trader, including you and I. If you have any business, whether you're selling tomatoes or onions or whatever it is, they should be customer care. But then we also talk about which institution is responsible. Uganda Bureau of Standards is overwhelmed. They can't be looking at your tomatoes. They can't be looking at the cabbages that they're selling. They're the same people who are looking at iron sheets. They're the same people who are looking at steel. And when you look at their budget, it is so small. When we ask them, they said, we don't even have the expertise. We are not scientists. For us, even when we go to Chikuva, we don't know what to confiscate. The toothpaste you're using, apparently the fluoride is not there. People's teeth are rotting. All that is business and human rights. From the small trader in your neighborhood to the biggest trader that you know, it is business and human rights, and we should have standards that everyone should abide with. So, yes, I'm about to finish. When it comes to, Richard, I'm glad you raised that, but then you said the Uganda Human Rights Commission doesn't have resources. Yes, we are using the best that we can. You know, we will always want more. But even with the little, we can do so much. So in the meantime, we shall use the little and do the best that we can while we wait for much more. The president has given us his word. The minister you have heard has said, we know. So there are things in the pipeline. So we, as human rights defenders, are committed to ensuring that we look out and point out the excesses and the abuses. So don't fear, feel free. And we have continued to register and investigate human rights violations. When it comes to oil and gas, so many people have raised the issue of oil and gas. I note that ECOP, the East African Oil Pipeline, is here. And if you talk to them and all these things that you have raised, they have answers. For now, since we're in the planning stage, and I've told Ugandans that when it comes to oil and gas, so Uganda has so far done well. We have issues of compensation. That is true. When you talk about the mushrooms, they were never taken into consideration, and I'm glad you raised that. When you talk about the grass, I was thinking, oh, where would my Jaja get the herbs that she always pumped into me? Where would she, you know, when I was sick, every time I would always get a local herb. So I'm like, if you get my Jaja out of this setting, how would she survive? Now, during the compensation of the project affected communities, that was never considered. And many times we have looked at the road infrastructure, and we commend the government for what has been done. But we request, I think, now that you raise some of the, but you know mushrooms grow in a week, eh? How will they compute this? You know, let us also be a bit reasonable. How will we, you know how mushrooms grow? 3 days or 2 days, and you have your, so how will they start computing the mud? So the mushroom, the grass, the different variations of grass. So some of these things, let us, I don't know, I think we need to have another meeting with the PAPs and see how this happens. But we all know, I think there is need for more sensitization and awareness when it comes to ECOP, Total, UNOC, CINOC, and many others. Finally, my final word is that we all have a stake in terms of business and human rights. It doesn't matter where you are. On a daily basis, we interface with business and human rights. And business and human rights, or businesses, affect women's rights, children's rights, the right to environment. I've talked about climate change. They impact on the work we do. Free, prior, and informed consent many times is ignored. The wildlife, we have seen that some animals and birds are becoming extinct because of the activities that we are doing in our communities. So you and I have a duty to report. You and I have a duty to raise our voices where we feel that something is wrong, because this country, this world, and this environment belongs to us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Director Ruth. A round of applause for my panel. Did you know that we are all human rights defenders? Now, we have a culture as defenders. Our motto is, together we defend. Now we're going to repeat, together we? Defend. Together we? Defend. Yes, thank you so much. My panel, please, can you take your seat? And I want to hand over to Michael and Frida. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Robert. Dearest panel, could you just warm your seats for a very short time, because there are two matters of urgent importance that we need to deal with. First is the issue of time. We know that per our program, and I apologize on behalf of the organizers, that time has not been our best ally, and neither have we been the best managers of it. So we must accept responsibility where we have failed on our part, including some of us who are invited and showed up late. But on that note, we'd like to deal with two small matters. One, in the interest of effective engagement, because I noticed that we did not have a voice from the corporations. Allow me to offer 3 minutes to the MD of ECOP, which is one of the largest corporations we have in the room today, to say something before we break off. And for those of us who are planning to run out, we are going for the group photo next. So if you're not recorded as having been here, please, it is your loss. So kindly, let's have the Managing Director of ECOP, Mr. Martin Tiffin, say something small within the context of what we have spoken about, and he can shed more light on a few things. Thank you so much.
That makes it very spontaneous, because I wasn't expecting this opportunity, but thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be here before you. So my name's Martin Tiffin. I'm the Managing Director of ECOP. I think there's a big intersection between what's been talked about this morning and what ECOP is. So first of all, just in broad terms, Mother Nature has put oil under the soil in Lake Albert. That is being developed by two projects called Tilenga and Kingfisher. And then that oil will be sent or transported to international markets through a pipeline, which is demonstrably the safest way to transport large quantities of oil, basically. That pipeline will be a linear project. We're all familiar with linear projects of roads, of railway lines, of power lines. But the distinguishing characteristic of a pipeline is it's basically some disturbance while it's in construction, but thereafter it's buried and the land is free. I mean, people can walk across it, animals can walk across it. Sometimes you see images of like a fence dividing East Africa in two. That's not at all correct. The pipe will be buried 1 meter. The top of the pipe will be 1 meter, at least 1 meter below the surface, and the access will be free. It's not fenced. There's nothing at all. That's how it will be. So, just picking up on I'll come to land and compensation in a minute, but just on best practice in terms of the UN guiding principles on business and human rights and how we've applied them in ECOP. So we did in ESIA. I saw that's kind of standard for many years in this sort of project in Africa. But we've also did do in 2018, and we updated it in 2022, a human rights due diligence assessment that we've also published on our website, so it's freely accessible. On our website, we also have a human rights policy that I signed personally, and I can remember spending quite a lot of time working on and editing that. It's a one-page document. So we're publicly displaying the standards to which we want to be held to and judged by in terms of human rights and including adhering to the, like I say, to the UN guiding principles. And we also have, but I'll talk about that maybe on the panel, but we also have, as per UNGP, I think it's 31, we have a non-judicial grievance mechanism that we apply in both Uganda and Tanzania to try and resolve issues out of the court, but in a sort of practical and fair way. I think there are 8 principles in UNGP 31. But one of them is ease of access, it's an accessible system, and another one is fairness or equitableness, if that's a word. And we certainly strive to be that with our grievance mechanism. When it comes to land compensation, it's a hot topic, yeah. There's again something in the press yesterday about grave relocations, which is something we have to do, and we do it in a culturally appropriate manner when it's necessary. But in terms of compensation for land, we follow the IFC, the International Financial Corporation performance standards, and again those are public standards. We're audited by what we call an environmental and social due diligence consultant in how we perform against the 8 IFC performance standards. And again, the summary of that audit report is available on the website. It doesn't say we're perfect. There's room for improvement in some of our activities. But generally, it says we are in line with IFC, which are those kind of most stringent standards for land acquisition. So specifically for land acquisition, where we stand today is that in Uganda, we have 3,660 households. You imagine a 30-meter wide strip of land running 296 kilometers from Kabale near Hoima, 296 kilometers, more or less north-south, down to close to Mutakula on the border with Tanzania, so a 30-meter wide strip. And along that, there are 3,660 households, we call them PAPs, who are impacted. There are 2 ways they can be impacted. The first way, this is an international jargon there, so forgive me, but the first way is economically, which means that some of the, all or part of their land, crops, structures, or trees is impacted by the project, in which case we take an inventory of all of that. We then discuss an update normally with the chief government valuer, depending on the district, the matrix of values to be applied to those crops. The IFC requires that people receive what's called the full replacement cost as their compensation. So you then basically cross-multiply the inventory. If there's eucalyptus trees I know now can be roof poles, they can be telegraph poles, they can be electric poles. The compensation rate is different depending on the diameter. You cross-multiply, if you have 10 eucalyptus trees, 3 of which are telegraph, you cross-multiply the values, and that gives you the value. We then apply a disturbance allowance in Uganda of 30%, so we uplift all of that by 30%. That's maybe to help pay for the grass or the inconvenience. It's not just the monetary value, but it's also the inconvenience. And then because in the case of ECOP, because of the lengthy negotiations, not all of which were in our control, we also pay a second uplift of another 30% for the time delay between when the survey was done and when the compensation was actually made. So again, you read a lot in the newspapers, but we began the actual compensation process in Uganda and in Tanzania in February 2022. One or two small areas we started a bit before, but the main land acquisition. And where we stand today in Uganda is that everyone except the final, I said 3,660, I think we're down to the last 230 households who have yet to sign, for various reasons, their compensation agreement. It could be disputes within the family, it could be some legal or cessation, the papa's passed away, or it could be that they don't want to. I mean, there's but we have something like just over 200 left in Uganda, and we had 80 in the same situation in Tanzania out of nearly 10,000. And then I should mention that a small percentage of the PAPs, less than 5%, just under 200 in Uganda, but again, the numbers are on our website, are what's called physically displaced, which means that their primary dwelling is impacted by the pipeline route, in which case we offer them the choice of either cash compensation or a replacement house. And we completed in July this year the last of the houses, so we built 175 replacement houses. I think without exception of higher standard than the houses that we were repairing, which are typical rural dwellings in Uganda, but we replaced them with a concrete structure, a brick-built or a concrete block house with a roof, with a solar panel, an inverter, a rainwater collection system, a 5,000-litre tank of water, an external VIP latrine, a ventilated and prepaid latrine, and an external kitchen. So, and I've been to some of the handovers of the houses where the PAPs come and take possession of their house. And honestly, I wish that some of our critics could be there and see the impression it makes on these people and how grateful they are, because it's in some cases something they never really dreamt of. So we have I think we're a business. I think of myself, by the way, as a force for the good in how we're doing this. We're executing things, like I say, to international standards. We're criticized a lot. Generally, the criticism, the closer you get to the pipeline, the less criticism there is, and the more compliments we get. But if you're 10,000 kilometers away, it's maybe easier to miss some of the detail and the attentiveness and how we work. So, and I think with our teams, I think we're honestly a force for good in terms of human rights. I think we can be a force for good in terms of environment and biodiversity as well. And you know, I heard some of the panelists there saying business is driven by profit or whatever. But I mean, as someone said earlier, I think the professor, you know, human rights are humans, and I'm a human. All of my team are humans. We want to be treated with respect. We want our human rights upheld. And we expect in conducting our business that we're symmetrical. I have no, absolutely, I mean, I want to make sure that the stakeholders, the villages, the households, and the communities in which we work are positively impacted by the project and not negatively. So that's my objective, and I genuinely believe, like I say, we can be a good actor in this environment, and we're doing not perfect, but we're doing a good job as well in applying what's been talked about this morning. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for those words on such short notice. I'd like to take this opportunity to invite us for a group photo, but I will request Commissioner Bernard to support me in the protocol of the group photo, to invite our chief guest and the people right next to him. I see some of our distinguished guests have since left, but we'd like to take a group photo before the minister leaves. We take the group photo? All right. No.
I hope you're not joining the government way of doing things, and yet you are supposed to be benefiting from the private sector, the speed and the protocol. Thank you so much. My job is very simple because the director of ceremonies has already encrypted me into the protocol issues. Allow me to request our chief guest and the table where he is, and these front tables to first come, and then the rest we can join. They'll come in front, then the rest we can see how to join. Others will climb on the what? Ah, where's okay. Yeah, I've been informed there is a deputy head of the Danish embassy here, head of mission. Hey. Ah, okay. Thank you so much. I think you're very gifted. I think I'm doing much more than just protocol issues. I've been informed that the honorable chief guest has some few remarks to make to respond to some of the few questions which came, and for clarification, so that I can also have a job. Yeah, I can have a job. Thank you so much, Honorable Minister.
I'll do it right from here. I can only say I have listened attentively, and my doors are open, and I hope I can commit my colleague of the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development to discuss the next steps after this meeting. I think the Ministry of Justice boardroom can host at least 20 people. So we can discuss the next steps, because at the age of 56, I no longer want to be involved in things which are just a merry-go-round. I want things which are effective, and I hope this time the youth will be invited, but I want to ask you that there are many open doors, but you just can't stand outside the door without pushing and start cursing those who are inside. Why is no one opening the door? You give it a little push. Most likely the door will be open. And I'm telling you that from experience. I've pushed many doors, and I don't waste time on a door which is locked, because some of the rooms are joined. So you push that door, it is open, you end up actually where you thought the door was closed. So let's keep this dialogue open. And since you are all educated people, you know the political economy, that this thing is about relationships. The basic political economy class is that it starts with the relationship with nature. And you clash with nature. And that is part and parcel of life. Then you cooperate with nature, you clash with nature also. And the managing director of ECOP, I found myself in a situation where I was facing demonstrators against your project at Chambogo University. So they inconvenienced me, but I told them that, well, we live in a society where we should allow people to express themselves. So about 10 people came with placards, "Stop ECOP now, stop ECOP now." And I said, well, this is a dialectical relationship between man and nature, because we must continue improving. We are not animals. Animals eat ready-made food. I've never seen a lion making a fire and roasting meat, or having a farm. Otherwise, a lion would have a farm of antelopes. It would not need to hunt. So as human beings, we are in the privileged. So we cooperate with one another to produce. Now the problem which brings conflict is in the relationship is when it comes to the sharing of what we have produced together. And that is why we are here, actually. So in this struggle, there's that struggle between man and nature. There's that struggle between man and man, mainly because of sharing the proceeds. So everybody is trying to put themselves in the best position so that they get the maximum benefit out of the proceeds. That's really the basics. And once you accept that, then you start from understanding something before you change it. And I really wish to call upon you young people. First, understand the road before you take off. Because otherwise you'll be very frustrated. Even mountain climbers, first start by surveying the contours of the mountain. Then you can. So if you want to change this society, first understand it the way it is. That's why doctors study diseases. Doctors don't study healthy people. They really study the very sick. I've never seen doctors doing internship among healthy people. They go in hospitals where people are on their deathbeds, then they start fighting back. So in this cooperation, so if I want to set up a company, I mobilize all of you and we cooperate. Then we make a huge profit. Then inevitable conflict comes when we are now trying to share what we have produced. So it is, that's why they call it thesis, antithesis, synthesis. And that struggle is forever. It never ends. At least that is what I have observed. I think it is a legitimate observation that you have that conflict when it comes to sharing the proceeds. So everybody wants to position themselves. And even in politics, so if we have the tax, we collect taxes for everybody, then we start now scrabbling to what share I get. So then I become a minister and I get more than you. Then others are MPs, they get more. Then others are councillors, they get more. Others are, and I think that the more you, for your own sanity and positioning yourself better to fight, to change, first of all, understand that. Because that's why I respect scientists, because science is about understanding the laws. When an aircraft is taking off, it knows that there is that wind from the back, there's that one from the front, there is turbulence. So you first of all study that. And there's nothing you can do about the weather when you are in the aircraft. So what do? You deal with what you have control over, aircraft design, you know? So you can land in snow, you have tires which are flexible, they can move like this. And I think, I don't have the time to talk more about this, but conceptually, I think that's really what we are talking about. So it can happen at a family level. So as a firstborn of my father, when I arrive at home, my chair is reserved. So I promptly occupy it and start dictating what is going to happen. So that's the relationship. Occasionally you have protests, I'm pushed, then I make concessions, and that is it. So you push ECOP, and ECOP will say, okay, we are going to give you a house with a solar panel and this and this and that. And so you push them a bit more, and they say scholarship also, ECOP scholarship. And then you push them a bit more, then, you know, ECOP Foundation. Now, that is really the relationship. And you must accept that kind of relationship. And it is also there in the world. So in the world, you have Security Council. You have 5 countries, France, Britain, Russia, China, United States, permanent members of Security Council. They say, even if the majority, so they say, even if all the animals in the world, in the bushes, vote that there should be vegetarianism as a universal dietary system, until the lions agree, that resolution is useless. Of course, the antelopes, these grass eaters, there are many. They will hold a general assembly and say, the eyes have it. There are many. Antelopes, giraffes, zebras, buffaloes, the grass eaters. But the lions will be in a corner and they roar and say, it's not going to work. It's not going nowhere. So I think we need a philosophy of struggle. Because you can overturn things, but first you must understand them. That's how kings were overthrown. And I believe sooner or later there will be change globally. And it starts with the unity of Africa. I've seen that now we have a seat in the, is it called G8? G20, yes, G20. Now the African Union finally has a seat on the high table. That's the first step. Now, will it have a voice? And will that voice be heard? I said all those things when I was opening your meeting. So even in this struggle that you are in, you must have a philosophy of struggle. What's your philosophy of struggle? Do you understand that philosophy? It is in any relationship, even when it is about a home. One day as children, some goats were given to us from the village. We took it to Ginger in our big compound. We forgot to take the goats to eat. So our dad said, no eating for you also. So we were very hungry. So as the eldest boy, my brothers told me, you must go and tell the man that we can accept any punishment except starvation. And of course, when you are being incited by those who believe in you, so I went and said, Dad, and he was holding a large newspaper. You know those newspapers of the 80s, very big. So he never talked, he just looked at me like, do you really have any justification to interrupt my reading of the newspaper? So I took a step back, I said, we are very sorry for not taking the goats to eat, and we accept, but we are very hungry, and we really want another punishment. Then something came to me. My brother wrote about it one time. He wrote an article called The Mao You Don't Know. I told my dad, I said, we are thinking of reporting you to the police. You see, not every struggle must involve you. I can easily report and step away. Then my father has to face another power. So you can also struggle indirectly. So if I report to the police, then my father has a conflict with the police. Because I don't have enough power. I'm living in his house. He's the one paying school fees. He's the one buying food. My power is so limited. But there is another power. So I said, we are thinking of reporting you to the police. Then he started paying attention. Then he said, okay, you can eat, but never do it again. And that was the end of starvation as a punishment in our home. So if the philosophy of struggle requires that you understand all the actors in the entire, you can call it a solar system. You have the sun in the middle, then all these other planets. You must see how you can achieve your goal by understanding the interaction of the forces. That to me really is my challenge to you. And have a philosophy of struggle. I could be responding to things one by one, but once you get what I've told you right, then no one will cheat you again because you understand the contours. That's why some people can walk in the dark without fear, because they have understood it already. But if you are in the dark, even a tree stump looks like a thief. So that's basically it. I wait to hear from you so that we can have our follow-up meeting. I will invite my colleague, the Honorable Betty Amonge, so that we sit together and you give us our marching orders. Once we have our marching orders, your goals will be achieved. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you so much, Honorable Minister. You'd want to have him even for the whole day. You can't get enough of him, as the song goes. Yeah, thank you so much. I think let's do the photo before lunch, and in the afternoon there's going to be another panel.
We have 3 panels.
How about short ones?
Very short panels, but very hot panels.
Yeah, thank you.
If you take a look at the program, there's still a lot on the buffet.
Yeah.
So many of us have raised issues that are part of the evening discussion. So please, when we ask that we have a quick lunch, please don't react.
All right. Thank you so much. Let's get ourselves together and support our chief guest for the photo moment. Thank you so much.
So for the photo moment, we shall have 2 photos. Mainly, we shall have the Honorable Minister, members of Uganda Human Rights Commission, representatives of co-conveners as well. Please join this photo moment, and our development partners. Co-conveners, please. This is our moment. Please organize us for this moment. Can I take? Please. Sorry. We shall do. I need to. Rest of us now join in. Is it possible? Okay. No, it's okay. So, yes. There are people with lunch coupons they have been giving out, and there's someone at the entrance. Commissioner Bernard, please lead our chief guest to lunch. He was.
smartphone